The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And we're back again. I think the end of yesterday's show, I screwed up all the days or what days are what. But so this is part 2 with Dave Ferruolo. No, he's not a furniture guy. He is a Navy SEAL. He is it's a doctorate, but it's called an EDD in psychology, which means he's an applied doctorate. Am I saying that right?
That's good enough.
Pretty close. And we were talking yesterday about SEALs or Frogmen, as they're also called. I think their name Frogmen did it come from the Beverly Hillbillies? I mean, that's where it got popular. It didn't start there, but when Jethro was in the pool, I don't know if you know this story or not, but he was there was one episode where he was talking about how he was practicing to be a frogman. And that's where it got really popular. That's what I was told anyway. I know there was there was a comic or something before that in some show where they had the creature from the
Black Lagoon.
Right? That's where it kind of started. But
wasn't there also a comic, The Frogmen, or something like that was based on the Scouts and Raiders and UDTs? Yeah.
But the Beverly Hillbillies, where that term got actually bigger. I don't even think a lot of people knew exactly what they were at that point. But we were talking about yesterday about how what Frogmen are all about, what the mind, and I like having SEALs on. I could talk about this 1,000 different times with 1,000 different Frogmen. It's interesting getting their take, on exactly what it is that they believe it is. You, from a psychological standpoint, I think is very interesting. But I wanted to talk about the Frogmen Motorcycle Club, which, I got to say, and I know all the other motorcycle clubs out there, got the outlaw motorcycle clubs, and they'd say they're the toughest, the most badass. But I would have to say, probably from a tactical perspective, if you were to arm the Frogmen Motorcycle Club, and they and you had to put them into battle somewhere, man, that would be a pretty ferocious group of guys.
Probably.
To actually go out and say, hey, we need this taken down, do this, this, and this. Because when you roll up, you're not just guys who, have on the patch and trying to look tough. These are men that have actually been trained to kill. So it's pretty phenomenal when you think about that.
Yeah, and it can be pretty intimidating when, 8 of us or 14 of us or 26 of us, roll up in our Harleys and our Indians, and, we've all got, bone frog, trident patches on our back and tridents on our front, and it's pretty intimidating.
How did it get started, and why didn't it get started before? Why isn't this something that was,
I wish I could talk to that, but I don't know. I personally don't know the whole ins and outs of the stories, but I do know that we're going into our 3rd year, and that it was, the brainchild of several frogmen, about, 3-4 years ago. And, I guess Mike Martin, rest in peace, brother. Like he gets a lot of the credit for conceiving of the ideas and designing the logos, and putting the first group of plank owners together, and then putting the word out and starting these rides. So basically the philosophy is that we're a brotherhood, long live the brotherhood. And we are a brotherhood of Navy SEALs that love motorcycles, and we connect with our brotherhood through our love of motorcycles. But it goes one step further. We're just, we are a nonprofit. So Frogmen Motorcycle Club, right? And we're online at frogmenmc.com, Frogmen Motorcycle Club. So, we are a nonprofit. We are a 501c19.
What is that exactly?
Which means that we are a charitable organization that's existence has a mission of raising money for one particular organization or particular organizations, and so we raise money for the Navy SEALs Fund. So we have a mission of raising money for the Navy SEALs Fund. So we are banded together by our brotherhood of all being Navy SEALs, which meant, basically we have criteria, right? You have to have made it through BUDS. You have to have earned a trident. You have to love motorcycles and have an American motorcycle with a minimum of 1,000 cc's. And, then you go through the process of probating with us to make sure that, you know what you're getting into when you're getting into a motorcycle club, learning motorcycle culture, because we're in their world. And you're right what you said, 12 badass Navy SEALs riding in hot on their motorcycles is pretty badass. But if you consider the motorcycle culture and the motorcycle club world, we're pretty small. Yeah. And, it would be very easy for, nomads or groups of 3 or 4 guys to get overrun by hundreds.
Oh yeah.
Right? So this is the important thing for people to understand, and for other motorcycle clubs to understand, is that we're non-territorial. We do not claim any territories. We do not exist to run or own territories at all. We're non-confrontational, right? But we are SEALs. So be forewarned. If you want to confront us, we're still frogmen, people. Don't forget that.
Have you had that happen? I mean, has there been issues where?
No.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Right. So there is a massive respect in the motorcycle culture, right? Mm-hmm. Which I really won't get into, but there is a respect among clubs, right?
Right.
And we have established ourselves as a club that is not, will not compete with any of the 1%er clubs for anything, right? Because we're not a 1% club, mm-hmm. right? We are a military club. We are Navy SEALs, and we exist to support the Navy SEALs Fund, to support our brothers, to ride motorcycles, to hang out, to be frogmen, to do stupid shit, to ride fast and have a good day and be all hoo-yah on our bikes. And we wear this badass vest.
Oh, that vest is amazing.
It's badass.
Who designed that?
Mike Martin designed it.
He did design it.
Mike Martin designed it. Yep.
Man, one of the biggest downfalls in my life is that I didn't get a tattoo by Mike Martin before he passed away.
Right, and a lot of guys are saying that now.
I know. Yeah. By the way, how bad did that hurt, the tattoo that you have on your inner arm, right there in the bend of your arm? That has to hurt right there. I've heard the elbow is the worst.
I
don't have a tattoo. I've never gotten a tattoo. Come close to getting one many times, never gotten one.
That one wasn't so bad because it was only a couple of hours, but then you have this one.
Oh man,
that goes up and all the way around.
Oh, I knew his shirt was going to come off before the show was over with.
It goes all the way up.
Holy cow!
And that was 2 10-hour sittings. You get a little zen. You get a little zen in those moments when, it's just like, okay,
interesting.
I also, used to think of, tattooing as like, this is training for torture. It's like,
slow torture,
but I fell asleep multiple times, and he'd just like smack me upside the head. It's like, dude, you can't fall asleep because then you jerk.
Oh yeah, that would
I'm
be
like,
bad.
sorry.
That would be real bad.
So you get this guy jamming this friggin' needle in your body for 10 hours straight, and you're falling asleep.
Oh my gosh. Do they get this feeling when, the guys that are in the club, is it like that? Is it healing in a lot of ways?
We have a lot of conversations about that. We feel good. We feel right when we're with our brothers, whether they're part of the Frogmen Club, motorcycle club or not. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely a different feeling when you're a frogman with other frogmen, rather than, when you're a frogman out with, civilians. And, I think I will never discount civilians or downplay them or, say anything bad about civilians, because most of my friends are all civilians,
right.
I spent my whole life with my best friends being all civilians, and, I love them dearly. However, it's you can't explain the difference to people that aren't in the brotherhood, what the brotherhood is about, So, like you and I had never met until yesterday, and we became fast friends, and here we are, and,
yep.
and we've had great conversations, and, several other guys that I just met, and, you hooked up with a couple of guys that you had never met last night,
Yeah.
went out to dinner, and and it's like,
By the way, the captain said, he goes, yeah, now that I know, know who you are, he goes, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know who you were until today. Gee, thanks, Captain.
right. So, but now you're friends, right? Because
He is an amazing guy.
We're frogmen, and we connect on this level because we all have this shared experience, right? And we all have this shared worldview and this shared type of mentality that's down in there. And it's kind of comforting to know that, like, here we are in this small little space, but like, it's okay because if something happened, there's two frogmen right here.
Unless they lock us in this steel. What would you call it earlier?
Sarcophagus. Right. Well, see, I was already trying to figure out other ways out, right? Because, right? Situational awareness.
There's got to be a door back there.
Being tactical and always knowing your ins and outs. And like the one door out there, of course, what did? I tie the door shut so no one can get in, right? But like, I didn't think about like, how if we can't get out? Right?
We'll be making phone calls, I guess. But I'm not going to go into where we're at. I'll just say we're in the bowels of a I guess it's a retired vessel. But it's a pretty remarkable room that we're in right here, and it's in one of the most badass boats that you could ever imagine. This is borderline a small ship.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
this is a pretty cool place where we're sitting right now.
So, we're at I'll put it this way: we're at the Navy SEAL Museum, and we're in a secret location around the museum somewhere. I'll just put it that way, which is, again, it's really cool. It's like being in a small museum of itself. Here's, if you want to know the mindset of two men, like Dave was just saying, we met yesterday, or actually we met Saturday, and we come down here, we're getting stuff set up, and he reaches over because there's memorabilia everywhere, and he reaches over and picks up this little seal. It's like literally a little bronze sculpture of a seal. And he was like, man, this thing is incredibly dense. And I said, let me see that. And I was like holding it. And I said the same thing he was thinking. I said, man, could you imagine killing somebody with this thing? Like if they broke into your house, he killed him with a Navy SEAL kills intruder with seal.
with bronze seal statue.
He was thinking the same exact thing. I was
thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, wow, you could really mess someone up with this thing, man. So right, frogmen think alike, and it's even better because, like, I think I told you this story, but the other day we're flying down the road, on our the motorcycle club, and it got pretty busy and congested at one point in time, and I was point man. That was, I don't know, it's just something that I do. It was my job in the teams, and I just continued that on the outside. So I'm point man, and I'm leading. So like as point man, like, I picked the route, man. Their lives are in my hand. If I pick the wrong route, there's a car, there's a truck, there's something, there's debris in the road. Like, it's my job to look out for everyone behind me, whether there's 3 guys or whether there's 30 guys. And we're hauling down the road, and I just look, and I'm like, oh shit, it's an oh shit moment where something bad is about to happen. And there's a truck coming this way, there's a car cutting right through the middle of us, and there's a couple other cars coming up on the end, and there's something in the way. And I see this little space and this little block of freedom, and I'm like, if we don't make it through there, one of my guys is going down. How do I communicate that? I just jammed on my throttle, I downshifted, and I bolted for that opening. I looked in my rearview mirror, and simultaneously, every single guy was closing the ranks on my tailpipes and following me through that opening, and we were like a flock of frickin' sparrows, man. And I just looked in my mirror, and my heart was going probably 170 beats a minute, and I was like, whew, and I'm like, that's Frogman.
Yeah.
If that would have been a regular, well, I wouldn't say, some of these motorcycle clubs, they're badass riders, man.
Oh, yeah.
But if that would have been just a group of regular dudes on their Harleys or on their bikes for the day, guarantee you that would have been a fatal accident with at least 3 guys down. Guaranteed. We got out of that because of our tactical and situational awareness.
And command decision.
And everyone going off of everyone, and and that's what it's like to be part of the brotherhood. If I was riding with civilians, there'd be a dead friend right now. No doubt in my mind with what just happened in that particular moment. And when we got done, we laughed about it. And it was like, you see that asshole right in front of me? Oh my Jesus Christ! Yeah, we just blew out of there, right? No, that was that blow out of there was a bunch of guys.
Wow.
doing something incredibly difficult in an almost impossible situation
Because they think the same.
because they think the same. They're on the same page. Situational awareness, tactical thinking, knowing where everything is at all times. Everyone's always looking, checking, double checking, knowing where everyone is, and they all know the skill level of every single person riding with them. They know that if I start going like this and my head's going around, they know something's wrong. My head's on a swivel. They pick up on that. They're ready. They're watching me, and I start going, and I go like that. They're on me.
Yeah.
And we're out, and we're gone. So
That's the way it is when we, in the teams when we're doing, things like I think what defines it so well is like a center peel versus peel left, peel right. When we were working together aggressively doing shooting and moving, and it's just amazing how there's a couple things in play there. Can you read the situation? Can you make the command decision? And will the guys that are with you follow with that command decision, not argue with it, but can they understand it and see what you see? I think that was always the thing for me about being in teams was that, versus the other places where I've worked is that what I'm seeing, they're seeing.
exactly.
And that makes it very easy to make these decisions and then have them follow those decisions. Exactly. And it's hard to explain. And I mean, there are people who, like let's say people who are in programming and they have a vision, they have the same vision so they can get stuff done in computer programming and things like that. In the medical field, they have a vision of what's happening, but that's through understanding and training and the same training and knowing their position. But when you're in a fluid environment, it's pretty amazing being with some of these guys and you say, you're just thinking it and they're already setting up for it.
Exactly. So, and that's the brotherhood.
Yeah.
And that's, that's what most people never experience in their life,
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Why did you go into the Navy? What was your focus when you went in? Why did you choose the SEAL teams? And because class 142 is what you said, right? Finished with 143. The SEALs were not, what year? That was in the 80s.
That was in 80. I went in the military in 85.
So it wasn't well known.
It was not known. My recruiter didn't know what a SEAL was. So
How did you know?
By accident. So basically, believe it or not, coming from the position of sitting here with a doctorate under my belt and a successful, psychology practice and a few books, I graduated at the bottom of my class because, I had other things to do in high school, and college was not in the cards for me back then. There also might have been this little issue with, the judge giving me maybe a decision to make, like, go in the military or we're going to be seeing more of each other, because, I had a heavy foot in my car and I didn't like people telling me what to do very much. So, so there's that.
I can't imagine that.
Anyway, so, and that was in 11th grade. I became a senior. And anyway, so, like, all right, I'm going to the military. I need to get out of the small town, which is, if you talk to a lot of military people, they say the same thing, need to get out of this small town, right? Grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. Not a lot of people, not a lot of opportunities, not a lot of stuff to do. So I needed to get out of there, and I knew it. And military was my answer. That was going to get me out of there. So I actually was enlisted in the delayed entry in the Army to me and a friend to go into. We wanted to go, airborne, and we wanted to be Green Berets, and so we'd go into the Army office all the time, and and there was this really cool Navy recruiter, John Dever, and he was just the coolest dude.
John Denver?
No, Dever.
John Dever.
And John Denver was my recruiter before he crashed his plane. Right. Gosh. You never knew that about him. So anyway, he'd be like, "What do you want to do? What do you guys want to do?" And we're going in, we want to be, we want to be badasses. We want to be airborne rangers, and we want to be Delta Force, and woohoo, Chuck Norris, Chuck Norris was my idol back then, yeah. And, so it's like, oh, well, we have a special forces, and we're like, you do? And what are they? Well, I don't really know, but let me try to find out. I have no idea what they are. So, there was a former a Green Beret who was a teaching assistant out of school for the wrestling team, not teaching assistant, but assistant coach. And so we went up to him and we were like, hey man, do you know like what the SEALs are? And his eyes got big and he was like, oh.
He was a Green Beret?
He was a Green Beret in Nam. And he was like, oh, yeah. And he was like, the baddest MFers on the face of the earth, guys. Yeah. Why you ask? Well, I don't know. The Navy recruiter knew that they were, guys. And he was like, I don't know much about them. All I know is that they are out there. They are out there in badassery. And we were like, ooh, that's where we want to go.
We want to go there.
We want to go there. Of course, we know nothing. We're 17, 18-year-old idiots.
Did your buddy go?
So we all went. Yeah, there was a group of us that all went. I was the only one that made it to Buds. And well, not the only one, but I was. Two of us made it to Buds, and I was the only one that made it through. And then several years later, my other best friend, that was part of that group, he actually went in the Army and then made a mistake and came back, and he went through and did a whole career in the teams.
Oh, so he made it too through.
So two of us, best friends from the same small town, from the same high school, who graduated together, grew up together, made it through Buds, and became team guys.
Isn't it funny how I know so many team guys who, man, they took the hard route to get there, and then they make a career out of it.
Right.
And there's guys like yourself and myself who, we go through, we do our 5 years, we get out, and then this is what I think a lot of frogmen don't understand this. They because I've gotten some criticism before. Your career is 5 years, it's too short. It should have been longer. But they don't look at the totality of the things that I've done. And when I look at a lot of frogmen, you look at the totality of who they are and what they've done. It's amazing once they get out of the teams what they're capable of doing.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing with me was that once I became a SEAL, and then I went into these other areas of operation outside of the SEAL teams, that never left me. And I was able to do so much and bring so much to the table in each area that I served in, that I just don't think some team guys realize that it's not just being a SEAL in the SEAL teams, it's being a SEAL wherever you go.
Right.
And a lot of people say, once a Marine, always a Marine, or this and that. And I will say this about the Marines, the camaraderie in the Marine Corps and what they do for each other. It's now we're starting to see it in the SEAL teams, in the frogman community outside. It's still not quite to the level that the Marine Corps is. Marines will always help Marines out.
Right.
And West Point's like that, the Naval Academy's like that. And
right.
It's slowly getting to that point with frogmen.
Yes. Oh, I think we've definitely crossed a bridge with that. What I've seen in the last few years with the club and with everyone and the friends that I've made. So put it to you this way. 4 years ago, I had, I think, one friend that was a frogman on my Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I have hundreds now.
Wow.
And, I'm traveling across the country. We have talked about that, but you're traveling across the country doing my things with for the Navy SEALs Fund and dropping in different places. And the invites that I've got from frogmen to, stay at my house, we'll put you up, we'll help you, we'll do whatever. I mean, I've got dozens of invites across the country from the Brotherhood, and 4 years ago I had one or two friends. Yeah. It's just, and I remember at one point in time in the early 2000s when my best friend, came home and tried to get me to go back in because it was after 9/11 and they were doing some pretty door kicking stuff. And, I was a new dad and I was raising a kid and I was about to go to school and it was just not in the cards for me. And, I wanted to, the call after 9/11 for me was crippling because I had this literally 6-month-old baby, which I am raising on my own. Mm-hmm. And if it was not for that child, if it was not for my son being born at that point in time, I would have been in a second. The day after those towers came down, I would have been right there. Boom. Right. Send me out, sign me up, get me back in shape, send me out. But that 6-month-old, there was no way.
Yeah.
I could, and so fatherhood was my calling after that, So, but but when he came back and when I said, I get this kid and I get this business, he just looked at me and he was like, yeah, you've switched gears. I have no use for you anymore. And like walked out. I haven't talked to him since. And I was like,
wow.
I don't know, 2002 or something.
Still no.
Nothing. Haven't heard from him since then.
Wow.
And weird.
Yeah.
Weird. And he still comes home and he still hangs out with all our other friends, but he does not call me or talk to me. And it breaks my heart because, man, he was my brother growing up.
Yeah.
He was my best friend.
And he's your brother Frogman.
And now he's my brother Frogman. There'd be nothing more for me to honor him by like, man, you went where I only thought I could go because he was a frogman. And, I don't want to say his name, but he was badass frogman and he did a lot of good shit. And,
but see, this is what I'm talking about. We talk to different guys who, serve for 20, 30 years. Some of them like Rob O'Neill, who I love to death. I was very critical of Rob, when all the stuff came out about bin Laden, but Rob O'Neill's career is phenomenal. He and I were both at SEAL Team 4 at the same time, but Rob got out at 18 years. I've talked to several frogmen who've gotten out at 18 years. I don't know, what's going through their heads, but anyway, I think maybe there should be a reduced pension for people so they can still get a pension for 18 years of door kicking like he did.
Right.
But if you don't stay in 20 years, you still make a difference as a frogman.
Absolutely. I couldn't have done what I did as a civilian or I'd be in prison if I hadn't gone to the teams.
Yeah.
The chiseling happened at Bud's.
Yeah.
And the forging happened in what we called at that time STT.
Yeah.
I think it's something. It's
SQT now.
SQT now.
Yeah.
And the platoon workup and the going and doing what we did and stuff like that forged that brought something inside of me out and then honed it and forged it, which then rocketed me out into the civilian world where I was able to open up several successful businesses, where I was able to write a couple books, where I was able to put myself through college, and where I was able to raise my kids simultaneously doing all that stuff at the same time, where I was able to rise to the top of my field instantaneously. And
I find it very, very well, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It's very off-putting that the military spends over $1 million training you, and then when you get out, they don't care. They don't use you. Other law enforcement agencies don't care.
Right.
And the public at large, they thank you for your service, but it's like I said, earlier, is that there shouldn't be a frogman who isn't having his door knocked down to be a part of companies. I don't know what that is. If maybe they just don't realize what's who we are or what's trained in us, and I know people are going to listen to this and say, "Man, the ego in these guys." It's not. It's really not about ego. It is about bringing a quality of work ethic that just is nowhere else.
Right, and you won't get it anywhere else. And that's why a lot of team guys are doing their own businesses and going into businesses with each other. And I've had these conversations. I've had these exact conversations with team guys that are working for big corporations and big companies, and we have these conversations about like, whoa, like I can't work at this level. What we call mediocrity is their excellence. Right. We're like, what are you talking about? You're like at 25% where you should be.
Right.
And, and we can just blow doors. We can do this. And, corporations that have the capacity to do it. Well, they don't have the people with the capacity to do it. Mm-hmm. So the corporation does, but if you could replace, like 15 key people with 15 frogmen and then, put a woman in charge.
Right.
Like we talked about in the last podcast, like there's something about a strong woman that can keep a frogman in line. Right. Thank God for my girlfriend, but, like the Navy SEALs fund, comprised of just a whole group of friggin' badass frogmen with all these awesome skill sets. And, there's a woman at the top of the chain, Drago's wife. And
she's also an interpreter of Panglish. It's Polish English because Drago is, he's still learning. Still learning English.
Right, but she keeps us in line, and she does a phenomenal job. And we all respect her, and we follow her as our leader. And so but that's an example of someone who understands what we're capable of, and opens those doors and helps us like put all that power into a place, right? So if you had a CEO of a company and they hired 5 or 6 frogmen, or, like a group of Marines, or, whatever. And they said, all right, let's see where we can go with this.
Yeah.
And okay, it might be uncomfortable for me, but
Here's the other great thing about a frogman is that if he's not doing the job, you can literally say, you're fired. It is.
Yep. See ya.
Yeah. It's not going to be like somebody else who you gotta play these games and you gotta write the paperwork. If a frogman's not doing their job, you can tell them you're not doing the job, or they just say you're fired.
Okay.
And they'll roll with it. You know what I mean? So, but that doesn't normally happen. Like all different groups, though, there are certain things that you got to weed out. There's always going to be your bad apples in everything that you do. But listen, before we cut this show off, I want to ask you real quick about, not to get political, but I want to ask you, we've been, for 2 shows now, I've been talking about all the things about Frogman, this and that, and Navy SEALs Fund, the Frogmen Motorcycle Club. But we're in a weird position in this country now. We're in a weird place. And I speak a lot about how important it is for the citizenry to step up to the plate. Mm-hmm. Because this is the front line now. This is the front line. Whether it's people and groups or forces within the United States that don't see eye to eye with the Constitution, understand freedom of speech and the Second Amendment, there are forces outside, China, Russia, different groups that are definitely watching to see where our weaknesses are. But if you can help the American public understand, not just from a frogman's perspective, but from your psychological perspective, your spiritual perspective of coming together, standing together, and having a plan. That's, I think, the biggest thing. People think because I rally and I'm going to give my opinion on social media that things should change the way that I want them to be, but that's not the case. So psychologically, how do people deal with reality? Not stress, but understanding reality. Is there anything you can give them so that people can say, I feel like it should be this way, but this is the way it really is, and actually envision reality instead of their opinion? You see what I'm saying? Because social media, news media, people don't know how to think for themselves.
Right. And that is one of the biggest issues, is that social media, the media in general, politics, it's all based on basically the theory of Bernaysian economics, which came about in the early 1900s when the government and some key psychologists or economists all got together and they said, hey, people can be led, right, and controlled by implanting a sense of insecurity or fear in them, and then giving them something to satiate that. So, if you're overweight, then we give you a workout book. If you're not cool enough, then you buy a BMW. If you want to have fun, then you drink Coca-Cola. And, so the media puts these ideas in our head, and it's slow programming over a long time, and then the rhetoric and the educational system. So, it's really hard to combat the social programming, because all of what we know is what we've grown up with. So if you're tuned in, and you think that, well, this isn't right, then, and what can I do about it? Right. Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. And
you have to come to an acceptance that sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. And then you have to kind of trust in the process. Like, there's definitely things going on behind the scenes that we never know.
Well, the nudging, what you talked about yesterday, which is very interesting. I think it sets it right off.
Right. So Nudge was a book that was written by, a famous economist who was in, Obama's cabinet. And and his whole study and his whole premise of his book Nudge was how to get people to think and do what you want them to do by slowly nudging them. So the idea that this socialist is good and sharing is good, and the fact that wealthy people are bad, and the educational system with flooding it with Marxist ideals and
it's interesting how people who will believe those things will brag and give details of what they're doing, like that book.
Right.
Yes.
They tell you what they're doing, but then it still just happens anyway. But here's the thing. This is what I tell all my friends and people when they ask me this, and I have a lot of friends that I didn't realize how liberal and socialist minded they were until all this started coming up, and like socialism is good and socialism is good. Well, I mean, I would just say, have a conversation with Drago,
Have a conversation with somebody from Cuba or Venezuela
or, any of those places. And when they say that, like Denmark and Sweden and Norway, they're not, they are not socialists.
Those are socialist capitalist countries.
Those are socialist capitalist countries.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people might not want to hear this, but yeah, we can do better in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. So can we take some of those conceptions and integrate them? I think we can. I think we can do better.
I personally believe that the medical industry, when it became a major, what's the word? The word we're using for big businesses, corporations.
Yeah.
When medical practice or healthcare became corporation led, I think I don't know if I'm saying this right. Basically, what's happened is we have actually priced people who are not wealthy out of their ability to have healthcare.
Right.
And if you had doctors who weren't looking to become the richest people that they can be, if you had corporations that actually moderated the price, but they don't, it is a business.
It is a business.
And there's a Frogman. I can't mention who he is, and I won't mention where he was, but he came out. He was a corpsman. He came out, went into college to become a PA, a physician assistant, and he went in, was working in the emergency room, and he realized that there was some stuff going on, and it was causing this delay, and that's why people were in the emergency room for so long, in the waiting room for hours. And so he reworked some things with the permission of his bosses, and he tried to bring he's being a frogman, young frogman. He said, I have this tactical perspective. Let me look at this and see if I can rework this. And they said, okay, and he did, and it was phenomenal. Like 20 minutes was the average time in their emergency room. Because they triage stuff with the physician assistants and the nurse practitioners. Mm-hmm. What happened was, though, the reason why these people, the wait was so long was because they had to have doctors come in and sign off on the chart. And that would sometimes take an hour or more for the doctor just to come in, look at the chart, sign off on it. Well, that doctor made $700
right
signing his signature. And so he had basically eliminated that. And by doing, if somebody had a broken arm, they could sign off on it, physician assistant, or if they had a bad cut on their finger, they could sew it up and send them on their way. Well, that wasn't the case. These doctors would have these people with a broken arm or whatever. They didn't set the cast, but they had to come in and sign off on it. And so this frogman who had come up with this solution and tactically looked at it and said, this is how, this is what we're here for, to do healthcare, and let's get these people through. He got fired. He got fired for that. And not only did he get fired, but it was a big corporation and medical chain of hospitals, and he couldn't work at any of those. It wasn't like he went in there trying to disrupt things or hurt things, but I think because he figured out that secret, they kind of banned him.
Right. And anytime
so the reason I brought that up is because that's not a socialist idea that we need to rethink healthcare, but we don't have to go to the extreme of socialism to fix it.
And so here's what I tell everyone is that, our republic, because we're not a democracy, we're a republic, and people don't understand the difference between that, right? So we're a republic, and the founders understood what is going on and what could go on, because it's gone on for centuries. And and they looked at that, and they studied history. We tend to forget history, so socialism is not the way to go. So here's what I tell everyone. Here's kind of the bottom line, Jonathan. What enables everyone to get on their high horse, give their opinions, and talk about what they want to talk about, and vote for what they want to vote about? What gives them that freedom of speech?
The First Amendment.
First Amendment. Okay, so our Constitution, the United States of America, the founding principles of the United States of America, gives them that right to go out in the street and demonstrate. Okay,
and they want to get rid of it.
So what would Drago say if he and a bunch of people decided to set up a safe zone in one of those cities where he was? What would happen to them? What would happen if in a socialist or in a communist run country, if you decided to do what they did in Portland or in Seattle and go out and just...
They would go to jail.
They would go to jail, or they would get mowed down right there on the street.
Yeah.
They would get killed right there on the street. Because when you abolish the foundation of what America is based on, you get rid of all your protections. If we rewrite the Constitution, look what they're doing now, right? Mm-hmm. They want to compile a list, right, of Trump supporters, because they will be enemies of socialism, right? So who says that?
AOC says that.
Okay, so so who says that? So what gets censored and taken offline on all social media?
Right.
Why is there a mass exodus off of Facebook right now?
Right.
A mass exodus because it's being censored. Mm-hmm. Right. Why are people switching from Fox and NBC and MSNBC, whatever, to Newsmax or to these other unbiased, forms of news media? Because they don't want to be programmed, and they don't want to listen to this. But people just don't seem to understand is their right to go on Facebook and call Trump rump, or because you don't wear a mask that you're a Trump supporting baby killer, or like when Trump caught COVID, I heard people wishing that he was dead. He's the president of the United States of America, people. Yeah. And I don't care if you like him or not. He's the president of the United States of America. And let me tell you, if this election, and I don't know, because I'm not there, I didn't count votes, and I'm not omnipresent, so I don't know if the election was fraudulent or rigged or not.
Right.
If the election is completely legitimate, and the Supreme Court or whatever powers that be follow the Constitution, and they find that Joe Biden actually did win, and there was no foul play, and there was no illegitimacy, right? Then he is my president, and I am not going to call him names. I'm going to respect the office of the president of the United States. And I'm going to hope that the founding principles of the republic, right, hold true, right? And I'm going to hope that we become more centrist, more rational, more informed, and we follow the Constitution, right? And in 4 years, we will get to speak again.
Well, that's what happened with Obama, but it took us 8 years, but we did get to speak again.
We did get to speak again, and we spoke for Trump.
Here's where I find my worry, and I think a lot of people's worry, and that's what I've been predicting for well over 6 years now.
It's been years
in media,
you've been saying this, yeah.
Is that they are going to change things so rapidly and so far to the left that it's going to spiral out of control. And I just think that people, they don't realize what's happening. They still think right now at this point that they can rally. This are people that are conservative. Think they're going to have all these rallies this weekend. It's not going to do any good. I mean, the people that are moving this country in the wrong position don't care what the people think or say.
Right.
And what worries me about all this, and what I'm hoping that people will start to see, is that there's tactical maneuvering going on here for something other than winning election. Winning election is just another tactical maneuver.
It's a tactical maneuver, right? There's a long game in play.
Yeah.
It's been in play for 25, 30 years.
Yep.
And they published that play.
Yeah.
They've been telling us exactly what we're going to do. Listen to Ronald Reagan's speech. Back in the day, it almost mirrors exactly what is happening today.
Right.
Right. Except that now they're here.
So I guess we'll cut it there, and we will pick this back up tomorrow. Everybody in this nation, as I keep saying over and over again, we've been saying this for literally years, that we are facing a socialistic, communistic dilemma. And before, it was like, if it comes, or what happens if this happens, or it's here. We still don't know what's going to happen. As I said yesterday, we don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks or months. But it's important for you to realize this and not stop. Now, rallying, I'm glad that people are rallying, but it's not going to do anything. People need to start standing up and preparing for what may come next. It's the truth. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.